Guardians. Oh, how I've missed the days of Arc Titan builds. The last time I truly enjoyed playing Arc Titan was in Season of the Deep, when we had artifact perks buffing our Arc classes. Well, I'm here to tell you Arc Titan is back, and it's better than ever. This build excels at clearing out a ton of enemies, generating a ton of ability energy, and even puts out some good boss DPS. So rally your fellow Guardians, prepare your arsenal, and get ready to dive into the new and improved Arc Grenadier build. Remember to leave a like if you find this video helpful, and if you like seeing build videos and other Destiny 2 helpful content, consider hitting that subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump right on into it. With the old Arc Grenadier builds, you could generate a ton of ability energy by creating a ton of ionic traces and then deal a ton of damage with those grenades. Well, the build I'm looking at today does just that, but this time it's on Prismatic. Now I know that we don't get Touch of Thunder on Prismatic, which is the key to having our grenades deal more damage and create ionic traces. But with Prismatic, you not only get access to Transcendence, which increases damage and survivability, but you also can use your classic exotics. Normally, you use Heart of Inmost Light to gain back a bunch of ability energy. And while you still can do that for this build, if you can get a roll on the class exotic with Spirits of Inmost Light and either Verity or Armamentarium, then you'll be set up to deal a ton of damage. Both of these options give you about 70% more damage than Touch of Thunder can, since Verity gives up to double damage. And because pulse grenades can stack, you can throw 2 at the same enemy for some massive damage with Armamentarium. Quick note, I haven't gotten either of these rolls yet, so the background gameplay is with Spirit of Inmost Light and Contact. So let's dive into the build and break down how it works. First up, for our super, we're taking Glacial Quake. And Glacial Quake isn't ideal for some bosses, but when you have the right boss, this super can output over 1.5 million damage. I'm mainly running this super for the interactions it has with 2 of our fragments, but we'll touch on that in a minute. For our abilities, I'm taking Thrusters since they have the shortest cooldown, so this is the best option, though Towering Barricade can be useful in tough content to have that extra bit of protection. And with Thunderclap's rework, it's honestly really strong. I recommend charging it up to max power for most occasions so that you can take advantage of the damage resistance. But if there aren't a ton of enemies around, feel free to just let one fly. And Pulse Grenade is the clear option since we want to be using as much arc damage as possible to create as many ionic traces as possible. Plus, the Pulse Grenade does the most damage from the options that we have. So for our aspects, I'm bringing Knockout. And with the rework, you now get health back based on how many kills and the tier of the target that you kill when you use your melee. Plus, your powered melee and basic melee deal increased damage. The great thing about this rework is that when paired with Thunderclap, when you get low on health, you can start to charge up your melee, all while taking less damage and then immediately get a huge burst of health. So I like to pair that with Diamond Lance, since none of the other aspects really fit. Dranger's Lash could be good, but when you use Thrusters, it only suspends targets close to you, so you have to get right next to the target that you want to suspend, which is why I'm bringing Diamond Lance, so that we can create Diamond Lances by getting stasis weapon kills or any ability kills. And this does 2 things for you. You can now freeze a target at range to close the gap and get some good burst damage, and it allows you to stun unstoppable champions, which can free up one of your weapon slots. And for the fragments, since we're running Glacial Quake and Diamond Lance, I'm bringing Facet of Ruin so that our shatter damage has increased range and damage. This not only helps deal more damage with your super, but it also helps out with Diamond Lance and weapons with Headstone. So we then bring Facet of Purpose, where based on your super, when you pick up an Orb of Power, you get an elemental buff. Since we're on stasis, we get 2 stacks of Frost Armor for 10 seconds. Frost Armor gives 4.5% per stack and caps out at 22.5% damage resistance at 5 stacks. We then create a ton of orbs, so this means we consistently take less damage, which is also why we take Facet of Protection. We end up being surrounded a ton in order to use our melee, so this allows us to gain an extra 15% damage resistance. And our last 2 fragments are really about generating more ability energy. So we take Facet of Balance, where rapid kills with light damage gives you 10% melee energy, and rapid kills with darkness damage give you 10% grenade energy. We end up using both light and dark damage a ton, so this helps get back energy for both our melee and our grenade. And the last fragment is Facet of Awakening, so that rapid kills spawn an elemental pickup based on the source of damage. This is huge when dealing arc damage. Solar, Void, Void and Stasis are all okay, giving you about 10% energy to just one ability. But with Arc, we create Ionic Traces that give 12.5 to Melee and Grenade and 15% to our class ability. You don't end up creating as many Ionic Traces as you do on the Arc subclass, but with Prismatic, you have overall more survivability and benefits. So the gameplay loop goes like this: spam your abilities. Pretty simple, but that's the beauty of Arc Titan. We bring so many ways to increase all of our ability regeneration that basically anything you do will benefit you in some way. If you ever get low on health, use your Thunderclap to get a burst of health. And since Arc Rapid Kills create Ionic Traces, and Ionic Traces are so powerful, you want to mainly focus on getting Arc kills. If you have the class item with Armamentarium, then this becomes a lot easier since you can throw grenades more often. But don't forget, you can use Arc weapons to create Ionic Traces as well, with Galvanic Armor giving you 30% damage resistance, Being Surrounded giving you 15%, Being Transcendent giving you 20%, 30% with our stats, 15% with our mods, and Thunderclap giving you 80% damage reduction. You can get up to 94.33% damage reduction, and on a regular basis you can expect to have 71.68% damage reduction, making you take a lot less damage on this build. So when it comes to improving the build, for stats, I'm going for 100 resilience. In any endgame activity, this is a must. We have numerous ways to gain extra damage resistance, which just stacks with this. After that, I like to shoot for 100 discipline. Our grenades are super strong, so we want to get them back as much as possible. And finally, I shoot for about 80 to 100 strength. All of the rest of your stats should go into recovery or intellect. And when it comes to our armor mods, for our helmet, I'm taking Arc Siphon, so that rapid arc weapon kills create orbs, and orbs are going to be super helpful for this build. After that, I like to take Heavy Ammo Finder and Heavy Ammo Scout, which just means more heavy ammo for you and your team. If you're using Ergo Sum, special ammo shouldn't be an issue if you have the Catalyst. Otherwise, you might want to swap this out for Special Ammo Finder. For the Gauntlet mods, I'm taking Heavy Handed, so that our powered melees now create orbs every 10 seconds. Since melee kills drop orbs right next to you, they're easier to pick up than when you create orbs with your grenade. I'm also pairing that with Momentum Transfer and Impact Induction, so that grenade damage gives you 12% to your melee and powered melee damage gives you 12% to your grenade. We mainly want to use our grenade and melee as quick as possible, so this just means more energy for both of them. For the chest mod, I'm choosing 3 resistance mods. I'm choosing 1 element of choice, 1 melee resistance, and 1 concussive dampener. But if you're running Ergo Sum, I drop the concussive dampener and swap it out for a Lucent Blade, so that you can get sword charge more often, which means more heavy attacks and guarding if needed. When it comes to the legs, I'm taking Recuperation, Orbs of Restoration, and Absolution. Orbs now give you a bump in health, 10% to your least charged ability, and 5% to all of your ability. This really helps in cycling through your abilities since we create so many orbs. But if you wanted to, you could drop Absolution for a Weapon Surge mod to deal more weapon damage. When it comes to the mark, I'm taking Bomber, so that we gain 12% grenade energy whenever we use our class ability to help cycle back to that grenade even quicker. Then I'm also taking Reaper, so that we can generate even more orbs by getting a weapon kill after using our class ability. And I'm also pairing that with Powerful Attraction. We've already mentioned how helpful orbs are with this build, so you can now easily pick them up by using your class ability. When it comes to the artifact, there are a few that you want to bring. First up, we have Radiant Orbs, so that picking up orbs will now also make you radiant, giving you an extra 25% weapon damage. I also like to pair that with Galvanic Armor. We have so many ways to deal arc damage, and when you deal arc damage, you become amplified. With Galvanic Armor, you gain 30% damage resistance while you're amplified, which should be basically all the time on a build like this. Then I also take Shield Crush, so that we can have a consistent way to gain increased grenade damage and recharge by staying amplified and radiant. After that, I'm taking Transference, so that while Transcendent, you gain more melee and grenade damage, with the added benefit that you gain back more Transcendent energy by getting weapon kills while you're Transcended. And if you are running a sword like Ergo Sum, then I'd also take Blade Stamina for more sword ammo on rapid kills. As for the weapons, there are 2 setups that I like. First, you can take an Arc Primary to create more Ionic Traces and bring any special weapon in the kinetic slot, or you could take a Stasis Primary and bring an Arc special weapon like Ergo Sum or Forbearance. Both are good options, it just depends on which you prefer. If you bring a Stasis Primary, I love weapons with Headstone, so that you can create more AoE damage. But if you bring an Arc Primary, I would bring something like the Lost Signal, which is basically like a legendary version of Witherhoard. For the energy slot, as I mentioned, an Arc Ergo Sum with a Waveframe roll is my favorite option to help destroy crystals and deal a ton of damage, though Forbearance or Indebted Kindness both feel great as well. If you're bringing an Arc Primary, Risk Runner is fantastic at providing good damage and even more damage resistance. Otherwise, I'd take a weapon with Volt Shot. If you have the exotic slot open, Thunderlord is actually really good, since you can use it for both ad clearing and decent boss DPS. Otherwise, any ARC machine gun will give you a good mix of ad clearing and boss DPS. The really cool thing about this build is that even running a version of it on ARC still feels really good. But with Prismatic, we get so many new benefits to recreate a classic build. Remember, mastering this build is only the beginning. Experiment with different combinations, tweak your loadouts to suit your playstyle, and never stop honing your skills. If you found this video helpful or just enjoyed seeing a new perspective, feel free to like the video and comment down below on what you might change or how you'd improve the new ARC Grenadier build. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech, signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.